Okay, so welcome to this week's episode of The Path Less Chosen, the podcast showing the careers they don't teach you about in school. My name's Sol.
And I'm Jamie.
And this week we have on Sam, and Sam works as a lighting consultant. Seriously rogue industry, something, again, Jamie and I have absolutely no idea about, but that's exactly why we started the podcast. But more importantly, what, Jamie, can we expect from today's episode?
Yeah, going to be a fascinating one as always, but in a really strange and unusual world for us. So I'm sure we're going to find out a lot. The biggest thing I think is how he's planning to make a genuine big difference to the problem of light pollution across the world. The second is how he's going about inspiring the next generation to care about light as well. And the third one is the power of using both light and darkness.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Can't wait to get into it. Just a quick one on our side. If you do like the episode, then please do drop us a quick rating on Spotify. It massively helps, or Apple Music or wherever you listen to your podcast. Really helps the algorithm. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us. Really looking forward to getting into the conversation. I think the first question we want to ask is, what was it about lighting that made you fall in love with it?
So, guys, honestly, before we start, thank you so much for having me on. This is really, really lovely. It's a real weird and wonderful sort of journey into lighting, actually. I started with architecture. Architecture was my degree that I embarked on. Because you're never taught about lighting throughout architectural studies, really. You sort of pick it up in bite-sized chunks as you go along that journey, but I found it quite unusually quick and sudden. One of my tutors at the time actually sort of introduced me briefly to a project, and funnily I was walking back from the train station at the university, and it was like a street lighting project. And I was really took by it. I was quite, engaged into this, and it was weird because I've never been took by a project like that before. That was in a building. It was, these street lights that were, quite atmospheric, and it sort of enhanced a bit of a reaction in me, and I immediately knew this was something, because normally you're took by some, magnificent building that you're like, whoa. But this for me was something different, so I was quite intrigued by this. So the next day I went back to uni and I said to that same tutor, look, you talked about lighting, is this what I've just experienced on the way back from university to the train station? And they were like, this is exactly that, and this is a project by Spears Major. They're a huge award-winning lighting consultancy. And I was like, right, okay, there's something here now. I'm quite intrigued by this. And I wasn't really, obviously I was interested in architecture in that sense, but the lighting side really took me by surprise in terms of like, well, this is a whole new world that I'd love to explore. From that, I did a lot of research into it and into how you can use light to enhance different emotive reactions from the user, and that really paralleled with a lot of the design approach you take with architecture, and you can use it in different ways, and I just found it completely fascinating, and it took over my interest really. So that's when I sort of stepped into that world, I think.
Amazing. And I'm sure people are listening right now, and we've kind of gone straight in with the whole lighting question, and it's because it is the most fascinating part and the roguest part about this. But give us a bit of background, like lighting, architecture. Explain more about that, please, mate.
So I think realistically, when we say I'm a lighting designer, what you are is, and you can't legally call yourself an architect unless you're licensed, but you are a architect as such, designer whose main design tool is light. So you are designing anything from master plans, from different landscaping schemes where you use light. You can design lighting for different buildings and facades, so the exterior projects or interior designs. There's so many broad services within lighting. Even impact assessment, so you can look at the sort of sustainability side, and a lot of my interest with lighting is towards the elimination of light pollution. This massive global sustainability issue we have and tackling at the minute. It's a bit of a hot topic within the lighting world. So yeah, there's a massive sort of range really when you talk about lighting, but it is so alien to so many people. But it's a service within the built environment. As a consultancy, I am a service within the built environment that parallels a lot with architecture. So we work with a lot of architects, a lot of interior designers, different contractors, and that's as sort of broad and vague as I can put it, really.
Yeah, I imagine there's so much stuff to go into, and I think you do say like it's an alien concept, but at the end of the day, like lighting is involved in everyone's lives every single day. So actually, of course, there's a massive like world behind it and a massive industry behind it, and I'm sure plenty of opportunities. But to go back then to when you were that initial interest was sparked, right? That's still quite a long way from then turning that into a career. And sometimes, people don't even try to pursue something like that because they might not even know how to get started. And I think what's amazing about your story is that kind of like particularly when we spoke before about just how you began putting yourself out there. And so I'd love to hear more about like what your kind of advice would be around that, whether it was getting into lighting, but I'm sure it's applicable to all industries. What were the first few steps that you took to then actually go down and make this into a career for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, because it was so unusual, that the whole world of it was so alien to me at the time. All I could do was really dive into the deep end in terms of, for me, what I did was after the whole train situation, I researched who actually was the designer for that scheme and, the consultancy, and research, different events in the industry as well. Because for me, I needed to meet these people and I needed to connect with these people, essentially. So what I did was I got a train to London at the time. I was only a teenager, and I went to this massive event in London. It was in Islington, the design centre, and they hosted an event annually for all different things related to lighting. So it was different exhibitions on lighting manufacturers to lighting designers, and there was a talk going on. It was a bit of a masterclass talk, and there was three really sort of high level individuals all owning their own consultancies, and they were really the top of their game. One of which was a guy called Mark Major, who's a little bit of a celebrity in the lighting world because of how amazing he's been and influential he's been, and he's won just a massive amount of awards for his work. But this was the guy who owned Spears Major, and he was talking at this event. So little red-faced me at the time, I waited along after he was done with the talk, and I sort of grabbed him and said, look, I'm so passionate about this. I have no idea what this is, but I know I'm passionate about it. And he said, look, do more research, apply it to your uni, and we have this scholarship award to students. And if you but he basically said, why not? Why not apply and see if you get it, and let's try and stay in touch, and I can offer you some guidance here and there, and I'm loving your passion, basically, he said. So that's what I did. I went back and I applied a lot of my work and research to my uni modules, and then sent off a load of work to this to apply to this scholarship award. And lo and behold, I was the last, because they did it for 10 years, and I was the last year's winner of that award and the youngest winner of that award. That was really the deciding factor of me going, this is exactly what I want to do, without a doubt.
Fantastic. Fair play to you, mate. If you hadn't gone to that event, let alone stayed behind to talk to them, you wouldn't be in this position now, right? So honestly amazing. But we'll go into some more detail on that. But you made a comment saying that he was like a celebrity of the lighting world. Because obviously that's so foreign to Sol and I. What is it that makes someone a celebrity in the lighting world? What does it take?
So for me, I think there's a bit of a hype around him in terms of his design approach in particular. He's been in the industry for years and years, and the projects he's been involved in have just been massively influential throughout the whole industry. He talks a lot about the celebration of darkness as well, which was quite alien to a lot of people at the time. No one was really going for that. And yeah, I think the way he works and the way he uses light but also darkness, that design approach really opened a lot of people's eyes. But I also just want to go back and sort of, because I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think for me, in terms of like going down to London and just throwing myself in the deep end in that sense, I really sort of like began to pick up a potential like, so at the time it wasn't, but it was a little bit of like mentorship. I think like his advice, like you said, if I didn't go there and just express my passion to him just from going and getting a train and going there, that would not have opened that opportunity. So in your industry, whatever it may be, if you can find anything to find those figures to go and just meet and speak to and just express your passion, that's, I think, key. I think for me, what I did was going to these different places and trying to find any mentorship and guidance, because it was an industry that was, say, alien at the time. I just knew I was interested. But yeah, no, he's the one person at the start of my journey which was the most influential, and yeah, he's continuing to do amazing work within the industry. So
it's fascinating. Clearly the perfect mentor to have in that space. And then, but even when you kind of speak, and this is again coming from complete novice, like very keen to keep going into your journey, because I think it's so important to have that. But this world is something that I had no idea even existed, let alone had such a significant presence to it. So like, I guess to just zoom out for 1 second is why should someone listening, or what does this role play or this world play in the actual world, and why is it such a booming area of work?
Yes, no, that's an amazing question as well. It's because it is so, it's been around for about 100 years, the industry really, just shy of, and it's still so new. It's so new, and compared to architectural, these industries that are so parallel, it's one that has only sort of come about through like real sort of trying to persuade these architects, trying to persuade interior designers to look at, and governments, and that this is a thing that we really do need to push into different buildings, different spaces, because it is so crucial. I mean, there are now so many different guidance and guidelines and different advisors, and a lot of lighting designers advise for governments, and because it is a crucial sort of topic. Now there's like what I would say the sort of more especially with outdoor spaces, there's the real sort of when we're talking about light pollution in particular, there's these issues that we need to sort of offer guidance to and consult towards, because of the like real harsh impacts that it has. So light pollution in particular is something that I'm very passionate about, and it's a global topic that has not only impacts on like humans but also animals and wildlife across the whole globe. There are different places in England but also worldwide that are protected, dark sky protected, which means that there is like hardly any light pollution going on, if any, in that area, which is incredible for different wildlife species, different animals, but also human health, because there's different things within lighting, and especially in sort of like mega cities, that the lighting, especially at night time, can really affect sleep patterns, can affect there's loads of research into like inside hospitals with dementia, the different lightings and the effects on there. But yeah, I think now more than ever it's so crucial to come up with schemes and different services that will basically mitigate those impacts. And for human health in particular, with OBS, our sort of approach to design is looking at well-being, and well-being being the forefront. And there are certain lighting designs and schemes that you can do which enhance well-being. So yeah, I mean, there's countless research studies, and these are sort of niches, but towards sort of, you know, improving health, mental health in particular as well. You know, these lighting designs are crucial, and office spaces in particular as well. You know, there's different studies that showcase how negatively poor lighting can affect workflow, and I find this really interesting, really. But yeah, it's an essential thing that as of recent, you know, different governments and advisories and, you know, architects are really coming to terms with that. It's arguably one of the most important things within the building.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can see it now. I'm probably never going to look at a light in the same way again now that I know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's having like an effect on my mental health, like everything around. Obviously, light is always around us, but I never really appreciated that now. Kind of opening my eyes to something that's probably going to be a bit more important in my life now. But so that's obviously all the problems you've spoken about. Now that you're talking about them, you know, it makes sense. I can understand why it has such a profound impact on everyone, and of course is everywhere. But those are like global, massive problems and issues, right? That everyone, I guess, in that space is trying to come up with solutions and resolve. So you mentioned it there. OBS Consultancy is your company. Tell us a little bit more about how OBS came about and what you guys are trying to do specifically, rather than tackling a global problem every day, which I imagine is quite tricky.
Yeah, no, it's been a roller coaster, honestly. You know, I'm still very, very young and you know, somewhat new to the industry in a sense. When you really look at it in a bigger picture, you know, there's people that have been in the industry for 50, 60 years, and I've got so much that I want to do, especially with OBS. It came about really through, I would say, my sort of fierce passion was recognised and picked up from early. Normally you come into lighting when you've completed your 7-year architectural degree, or, you know, other degrees such as like interior design, product design, or you know, stuff like that, or engineering, and you have that background, and then you go, oh, okay, I don't really fancy architecture so much, but yeah, there's lighting, let's go and find a consultancy to work at. That is a bit of a traditional route into lighting, but mine was quite unusual, and I've picked up a few awards from an early stage, various investment and, you know, fierce mentorship really, and I'm so sort of privileged to have got the mentors that I've got, because they've really guided me through the whole process. And yeah, it's been set up now for 8 months, so we are very new, and it's a very exciting time, I think, to be a lighting design consultancy. So yeah, I think taking the leap was something that I always had planned, but the opportunity came about the start of this year, and yeah, very grateful for who I've had around me to help with that and support with that.
Anyone listening that's like, wonder what's this lifestyle like? And so you're working towards all these big projects, but when you wake up in the morning, from whenever time you're working through the day, what is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, no, that's a real good question. I think for me, I always have to start the day. And by the way, it's bloody early, but I start the day and I have to get a gym session in. I have to, because for me it's priority. And then I am awake, so then I can, you know, get back and then get on with some admin bits in the morning straight away, and then immediately onto, you know, a meeting or whatever's scheduled in the morning. Get that done. And then onto project work. For example, you know, especially with the construction industry, the Friday just gone last week, like, because everyone's trying to get every bit of work out before the Christmas holiday, it was beyond hectic. So I had, you know, I've got this office building that I'm doing in London, and they're just getting the last bits of work out in the day. I think the night before I went to sleep at about 2 a.m. and then woke up at about 5:30, 6, and then worked from 5:30, 6 to about 5, 6 p.m. just to get it all out. I don't think I breathed the whole day. I forgot to. I was just flat out. But that was an unusual, as it should be at the end of the year, getting everything out. So there are days like that. But normally it's the consultancy hours, and then for me, because I'm running it after a couple hours in the evening, getting those maybe bits of admin out, a bit of outreach, speaking to people, those sort of things. But always a gym session in the morning, otherwise I can't operate. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, really interesting. No, it's an important part of the day, like for anyone going down a path less chosen, they always have to look after themselves as well, right? So yeah, really interesting to hear and for you to share. I think also one thing that struck us when we were like listening to your voice note and trying to understand a bit more about your path and how you really felt about the lighting industry. One thing that really stood out, I think, that demonstrates really how much you do care and how much this is just a big passion for you, is the fact that you've then gone and built an educational platform around it. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, how that came about and why you think it's important to do that?
Yes, no, definitely. Now, the platform came about, it's been created from the start of this year. So I had won an award, and from that, it was called the Silhouette Award, and from that I received a mentorship with a just immense figure within the lighting industry. Her name is Paulina Villalobos, and she's from Chile, and she has done remarkable things in the industry towards light pollution, towards the research and advocacy, and there couldn't have been a better sort of mentor and figure within the industry to help me and support me with that. Our sorts of, it's almost aggression towards getting the advocacy out there. It was so aligned, both of us. And so we had sort of brainstorming sessions, the both of us, and she picked up that I was on a sort of journey to educate children in particular, because they were missing. They were the ones that weren't taught it at all. Now, light pollution is not embedded in the UK, in particular, UK school curriculum. This is a problem, because it is the same as in terms of effects as like when you're in school in geography and you learn about like carbon emissions, or you learn about greenhouse gases. Light pollution is a topic in the earth sciences which is as bad in terms of like the effects. So for me, it just completely baffled me why it's not taught, and she understood this, and she really helped me and sort of guided me in the right direction on what to sort of produce, as it were, to sort of like tackle this issue. So yeah, decided to sort of take a leap in terms of like the route we were going to go down, and a educational platform that was interactive but showcased the sort of positives of getting rid of the issue in like comparison to sort of like showcasing the horrible negative impacts. At school you learn about these devastating impacts, of these horrible global issues, but if you actually showcased the positives of getting rid of it instead and flip the narrative, we quite like that idea to showcase children. And by doing this in sort of like interactive games where there's like, you sort of guide turtles back to the ocean through moonlight, how they naturally would, instead of like these highways next to the beach where the turtles are looking at the obtrusive lights and going towards the highways where, leading them to obviously horror. But when you get rid of those horrible lights on the highways that are doing this, you can then guide them back to the ocean. There's, these little lovely games that these kids can do, and they're quite inspired. We quite like that narrative. So yeah, developing at the minute this platform that was also shortlisted for an award, which we're really pleased with. So we've already sort of gathered some sort of awareness around that platform. Really looking at pushing it, especially in the new year. So a lot of sort of research in terms of like actually speaking to schools and going into schools and sort of testing the water, as it were. And we're really excited about it. I think it could be, yes, it's a project, but it's something that could be massively influential throughout the whole industry in terms of advocacy. It all stems from children. Anything does. All this awareness and advocacy starting from children will just be massive for the industry. And that's the target, because it hasn't been done. That for us is the best and most beneficial route to go down with it. And it's really exciting. We're really sort of pleased with how it's going, and looking forward to the new year and where we're going to push it to.
I love that. And just on that point, what is the plans for yourself? Is that taking up much of your focus in the next 6 months, but then also what are the plans for the next years in your career?
No, most definitely. I think from the start of the new year, going to really sort of finalise somewhat market research for it, in terms of speaking to the schools. Got a few meetings lined up, and really gathering that research, really finalising the decks and everything, and the different proposals for it. But then the next steps would be to obviously raise the finance to be able to develop the platform fully, so we have an operating educational platform, which we can then look at flooding into the schools. So that for me, weighing that up, because it's another job. I see it as that, and I recognise that, I fully own that, that I'm going to have to weigh up alongside the consultancy, and I'm really sort of looking forward to that. Actually, it's a bit of a passion project, but one that I can really see me having as a second job, as it were, running that alongside OBS. That is exactly what I want to do, because it is something I'm so fiercely passionate about, and I can really see pushing into schools, but not only just UK, but globally. Paulina out in Chile, she's going to be a massive figure in terms of the Americas, looking at that. We'd love to take it to Asia as well, because they've got a massive problem with light pollution, especially in places like Hong Kong and different mega cities there. It's a huge issue. So educating the children there would be something that would be amazing. So it's going to be a massively crucial 6 months in the start of the new year, getting that sort of pushed down, finalised to look to get it done, developed.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. I love the fact that you've got all these global plans, and actually I'm confident the way you're speaking about it now, you will actually go and make a genuine difference, and it's crazy that you could be doing that in the Americas and Asia. And Sol will round up in a second. I think just to go into our final question that we ask all of our guests, if you were to go back to at the time maybe when you first fell in love with the idea of lighting, what's one thing from then that you'd have done the same, one thing you'd have done differently, and one thing you'd tell yourself to motivate yourself?
So I would say one thing I would do the same was going out, and the mentors that I have done, really sort of pushing, just getting out there and just speaking to people. And because most of the time people are genuinely really nice and they just want to help you out. Especially I found that in the lighting industry, no one's been dismissive at all. So they've all been really they've celebrated me and my journey and what I've done at such a young age, really. That's been something really sort of refreshing to see. But I'd 100% advise for anyone going out and doing that, especially in the construction industry. People genuinely want to help, and they want you to push your passion. So I'd 100% I've sticked with doing that sort of approach, with just talking to people and finding those mentors and bits of advice anywhere you could. Differently, I mean, genuinely maybe a bit more time in a practice. I was in practice for a good year, and picked up a lot, really picked up a lot. If I didn't have the mentors I do, then running a consultancy would be a bit all over the shop. So maybe the risk of finding those mentors, if I didn't have, then more time in a practice would have been a good thing, of course. But to pick up maybe another service under my belt that I could actually like look at pushing and doing. That could be something different maybe. Motivation. So I would say don't listen as much to people that haven't and don't have the passion you do for that field and industry. Don't sort of like take advice for traditional routes as such, because you know when you explore different paths and go a bit weird and wild and not really on the straight road to it, magical things can happen from that. So don't always be sort of, you know, affected by what people who haven't gone on those weird and wonderful paths have to say to you, because you know you're going to find your own way, and you've got to pave that way, and you've got to take ownership of that way without a doubt. So yeah, just do your thing.
I love it. I think that's such a good way to end, like, do your thing, especially as, you know, you're talking about such a rogue industry, but at the same time, you found your passion, and that's exactly what we want to celebrate on this podcast, is people getting their heads down and finding their passion. And people spend years and years and years working things they don't like, and I'm sure you get judgment from those people, but you found what you like, you've cracked on, and you're absolutely nailing it. So mate, thanks so much for sharing that journey with us, and I hope it inspires a lot of people either to get into the lighting industry, or more importantly just to follow what they love doing and to get cracking. So thanks very much for your time, mate, and can't wait to share.
No, thank you both, honestly. It's been lovely. Cheers.
Okay, great. Yeah, really enjoyed that conversation with Sam. Fascinating world, fascinating industry. I mean, there's been a few on that Sol and I have no idea about, but this one really was quite eye-opening, that's for sure. So to go into the key takeaways, I'll throw out the first one. And I think this wasn't something he never explicitly said this. It just came across with how he was answering and how he was talking about the work that he does, was just genuinely like living the life of that career if you love it enough. Every single day, he's surrounded by light, and he feels so passionate about it that it must make things just really exciting for him the whole time. Like, he always gets to think about it. He actually told us a story after we'd finished recording about sometimes he'll be in the car with his girlfriend, but she'll have to tell him to shut up because he's just talking about some of the lights that are around them as they drive past buildings. And I just find that incredible, that you are so immersed and so in love with what you're doing and feel so strongly about it that you can just live the life of a light expert and a light consultant. And I thought that's exactly what you kind of want to get out of a career. So the way he talked about it was a big takeaway from me, as this is something he clearly really does love.
100%, I agree. I think there's like flow state in that, but not much to add there. I think, yeah, amazing stuff from there. And my second part to add, which would be the fact that, you know, I'm sure he's had his fair share of flack, or people being like, oh, well, it's about lighting and like, why should anyone care? And like, to its core, I think if you found what I said in the last part, if you find something that you love, you should just keep doing it, because either it'll get to a point where you'll be so good at it that people won't take the piss out of you, or probably more importantly for him, he just loves it so much that it doesn't really matter that it should be something that he cares about. So yeah, I think amazing to see him kind of deflecting issues and just cracking on and loving it.
Yeah, nice. And I think the third one for me was one that we both agreed on as such an important takeaway from it, which is the idea of mentorship. But he used a word that we've not heard previous guests that talk about this topic before. He described it as fierce mentorship. And actually, if you look at who he's surrounded himself with, like when he mentioned them to us previously, I quickly looked them up, and, you know, like once you type them in the whole lighting world, they come up straight away. And these are the guys that, like, if I was interested in lighting myself, I'd probably want to get hold of them. And he's gone out and found them. He's put himself out there, and the way he's approached people and the kind of interest and passion that he's shown to them, which I think is what he's shown to us on the episode today. That's what's got him these mentors behind him. And there's no way he'd be able to do what he's doing now without those mentors. So the idea of fierce mentorship, big takeaway.
Yeah, very good point, mate. Nothing to add on that. So in terms of those three takeaways, first one being immerse yourself in the life that you love. The second is don't care about what other people think about you doing that. And the third is try and get mentors, because it can make a massive difference to your career. So mate, great episode, completely rogue, completely random, but again, exactly the sort of people that we celebrate on the Path Less Chosen. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Sam. See you next time.